I'm beginning to suspect the Indiana Fever are a better team than the Chicago Sky. Don't ask me why I believe that or think that. It's just a sneaking suspicion that I have. I mean, it could be the fact that the Fever spank them every time they play. Could be that. Maybe it's that. I mean, you can date back to last year, but this year, the Fever spanked the Sky in the season opener. Both teams at full strength. Fever smack them. Then Caitlin Clark's out the last time, and the Sky, they did suffer a Courtney Vandersloot injury. She had the devastating injury early in the season. But beyond that, the Sky were there, and Reese was there, and the Fever spanked them. Then this time around, both teams dealing with injuries. Sky really decimated by injuries, to be fair. Rachel Banham carrying the slack a lot for them. But Caitlin Clark still out for the Fever. And once again, the Fever spanked the Sky. So no matter what context, what part of the season, however you want to frame it, the Fever are a better team than the Chicago Sky. And the Fever are starting to really find their stride. They're really starting to find their stride. Obviously, they're able to get into a little bit of a rhythm without Caitlin Clark, knowing Caitlin Clark is going to be out for a minute. That's something Sophie Cunningham talked about after the last game. And good thing for them, they still have Kelsey Mitchell in the backcourt. And Kelsey Mitchell continues to just cook. She is just such a fun player to watch. Obviously, somebody who gets to shine even more. It's not like she didn't shine next to Clark, but has to carry the offensive and scoring load in Caitlin Clark's absence. And big shot after big shot in this one, where you're just getting used to it. You almost get numb to it. Kelsey Mitchell can go out there and score in her sleep, get buckets in her sleep. She is a walking bucket getter. There's just really no stopping her. She's so quick, and you hear other players marvel at that, like how fast she is. But 12 of 19 from the floor, 35 points for Kelsey Mitchell. She was absolutely cooking. Then there was Khloe Bybby, who makes her debut with the Fever in limited minutes, but nonetheless does exactly what you would ask for, which is the Fever have been desperately needing a stretch four. That's the one spot that they were lacking in. And if Bybby can fill that hole, all of a sudden they don't really have any weaknesses or too many weaknesses in the roster. You see it right there from the corner, knocks it down. She didn't hesitate. She hit her shots. She did her job in what is essentially an audition here. In 11 minutes, 8 points for Khloe Bybby, 2 of 4 from 3. Some big minutes from Michaela Timpson in this one. 14 points, 3 steals to go along with that. An all-around game from Aaliyah Boston. A good game from Ari McDonald as well. Turned it over a little bit, but nonetheless, just that energy and that spark plug she provides, because the other hole in the roster was the backup point guard, and that has now been filled by Ari McDonald. And then in the midst of this win by the Fever, there was an actual update from ESPN. I know I talked about that placeholder thing on the schedule, but Holly Rowe, and I would play it for you, but I'd get pinged for taking the broadcast. Holly Rowe was on the sideline and shared what I think was an enlightening report on Caitlin Clark's status. Basically, she said that Stephanie White thought that they didn't get enough time to ramp her up or get her in practice time the last time around. And this time around, they're going to take an even more cautious approach, which is in line with what I had gathered and what I had heard. Now, Rowe emphasized that this is a day-to-day monitoring situation, but I thought it was noteworthy that she pointed out the third week in August. Now, I'm not technically sure what qualifies as the third week in August, since August 1st is this Friday. So is that the first week or the second week in August? I'm not sure, but she said that there's a pocket in the Fever's schedule in the third week in August, which looks to me, it's not the 20s there. So it looks to me like that 12, 15, 17 range. And that 12th date was what was initially listed on their projection. But this seems to be information actually relayed from the Fever. So I found it noteworthy that Rose specified the third week in August as a realistic time frame for Clark to get back in practice, get back in a rhythm, get back out there with her teammates, and get back ramped up. Because the WNBA schedule is unforgiving. This has been a topic that has been brought up a bunch lately. Paige Beckers sits out for rest. And that's a bit of a controversial topic because she's a rookie and young, but the Wings in the midst of a crazy schedule. And they got a back-to-back, and she's dealing with tendonitis. Obviously, you see injuries piling up across the league. Caitlin Clark, who I just mentioned, of course, Angel Reese out of that Sky and Fever showdown with the back issue. And a lot of that could be due to the condensed schedule. Rebecca Lobo shared something on X about how the time between games is even fewer than it's ever been. And it just continues to be a recurring topic, even to the point where Stephanie White, the head coach of the Fever, addressed it before the game and said what is pretty much patently obvious at this point in time and affects the Fever and everybody else.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's hard not to when you don't get a lot of rest and recovery. No, I always think the WNBA season is like this sprint marathon, and you see more injuries when you don't have a chance to recover. But it's not like individual teams are the only ones that deal with it. This is a league wide collective issue. So yeah, and I also think you see the NBA, for example, has a similar cadence, but they've got 30 teams, and they're not quite as much crisscrossing time zones, crisscrossing the country. So it's the challenge of the footprint of our schedule, no doubt.
So that obviously seems like an issue that needs to be addressed in the next WNBA CBA. Clearly, like almost unavoidable now. It comes up all the time. I mentioned around All-Star, where anybody calling it an All-Star break is out of their mind. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, while she's got a break from the action, doesn't get a break from the autographs. This was at the United Center. She's signing a bunch of autographs for fans there gathered. Does this qualify as taking over a trap, considering this is Chicago and not Indianapolis? That every game is a home game thing. Though the Liberty and the Valkyries have something to say about that from what I've seen so far this year. But you see Caitlin Clark adding a little carpal tunnel to her groin issue. But nonetheless, a nice win for the Indiana Fever. They are now doing enough where taking off the pressure from Caitlin Clark to return even more so she can come back at full strength, moving up the standings a little bit, only a game behind the Seattle Storm for 5th right now. Same, only a game behind the Atlanta Dream, who sit in 4th. So I guess, what was the saying for the Fever last year? Fever rising? Perhaps that could indeed be the case. Please like and subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here. But you got to be feeling a little bit better if you're a Fever fan, not only about the team's fortunes, but with a better idea of when Caitlin Clark could be back as well.